Okay, so I am going to begin. Welcome to today's conference where we are speaking about impactful business presentations. So, a few need to knows before we begin. Most of the questions that you would like to ask, or all of the questions, if you would like to ask any, I will answer them at the end of the class. We will have about a 5-minute question and response. So for the first half of the conference, I will just be explaining today's subject. So please, if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to leave them in the chat, or you can hold your questions up until the last 5 minutes of the conference. So today's conference with Le Cercle des Langues is Speak Up and Stand Out, Impactful Business Presentations. We are going to be looking at 4 parts: the introduction to today's conference. We are going to look at popular vocabulary and expressions. Number 3, strategies. And the conclusion. So let's look at the first part. We are talking about the introduction. The objectives in today's conference is to understand common vocabulary and expressions, to learn strategies for structuring impactful presentations, and to gain confidence to present in a business context. So these are the 3 points we will be covering today. The second, we are going to talk about vocabulary and expressions. So let's dive into some key tips for how to start a presentation. As we all know, planning a presentation can be quite stressful, and we all would like our presentations to have a strong impact. That is the most important thing. So let's look at a few points that could help us create powerful and impactful presentations. The first point is to understand your audience, understand your market. Who is it that you are speaking to? Who is your market? Number 2, we are looking at use a compelling hook. I will explain what a hook is just after I have read all of the points. Number 3, state your purpose. It is important that we state the purpose with clarity and often using the least amount of words possible. We love to make an impact in a quick way. Number 4, introduce yourself and your team. They say that work is best completed in a team, and it is always wonderful when we can acknowledge our team members. Number 5, we maintain enthusiasm. Enthusiasm speaks to a positive attitude, and it is always a wonderful thing to watch. Number 6, ask a thought-provoking question. A thought-provoking question is a question that allows the audience to think, to reflect. And number 7, share a surprising statistic or a fact. I would like us to look at number 2 again when we talk about a hook. What is a hook? A hook is a compelling hook in the context of a presentation or speech is a powerful and attention-grabbing opening statement or story that captures your audience's interest and draws them into your topic. A hook is often 2 words, 3 words, or a phrase at most. Expressions to begin the presentation. We could use 3 different expressions. There are others. However, we are going to concentrate on these 3. Number 1, let's dive into. Let's dive into. Dive en français, ça veut dire plonger. So when we use this phrase in English, it lets us know that we are going to commence. We are going to start. So let's dive into today's presentation, today's topic. It's always a great phrase that allows people to feel more comfortable because it's not very formal, however, it is very polite. Number 2, today's focus will be on. Today's focus, so that already shows where the concentration for that presentation will be. Number 3, I'd like to shed some light on. To shed some light on means to almost put a spotlight on the topic. When we put a spotlight on the topic, we are now opening the door to what we are going to be speaking about. These expressions are very useful when beginning a presentation. Providing evidence. Providing evidence is a very important part of creating an impactful presentation. But how do you demonstrate research and evidence on slides? How do you do that? The first point is to use clear and relevant charts. Number 2, to cite your sources and references, as we would not want to plagiarize any information. We would like to give credit to our sources of information. And number 3, use testimonials and case studies. Testimonials are very important. Why? Because testimonials allow the audience to see that there is proof, that there is evidence that this presentation or what we are stating is successful. Let's look at another part. Some of the useful vocabulary that we could use. We could say, according to a recent study. So when providing evidence, we could say, according to a recent study, to show that it has been used before. This topic has been covered before. Data suggests. So when we talk about data, we are talking about statistical evidence that proves our fact or proves what we are trying to present. Number 3, based on our internal figures. Again, because there is proof, you are now showing that there is proof based on these very useful phrases that you are able to use. Addressing counter arguments. So a counter argument is someone or something that would like to disprove what you have stated. So we have counter arguments in 2 steps. The first step is to respectfully acknowledge evidence or standpoints that differ from your argument. So often in a presentation, it is very useful to give 2 sides, to give the pros, to give the cons. And with a counter argument, you are able to then present any arguments that someone might add to your presentation. And this allows you to almost level out the proof. Number 2, refute, which is to disapprove, refute the stance of opposing arguments, typically utilizing words like although or however. In the refutation, you want to show the reader why your position is more correct than the opposing idea. So this is also important in giving your presentation because it adds strength to the fact that you are able to look at both sides of the argument. So let's give some examples of useful vocabulary. While some might argue that, number 2, on the other hand, and number 3, it's important to consider. Very polite phrases, very useful phrases. Number 2.4, the conclusion. How do we conclude a presentation? The first part is to summarize the key points. Choose 3 or 4 points from the presentation and reiterate them. So you choose those key points and you repeat those key points. This allows it to remain in the audience's mind as they leave the presentation. Echo the core message. What is the objective of your presentation? And you need to echo that. You need to repeat it. And then present a call to action. Present a call to action means, what can the audience now do? What can they do within what you have shown them? A call to action is a very important part of a presentation. Examples you can include in the conclusion are: use a powerful quote, ask a rhetorical question, tell a story, give a visual image, and acknowledge others. These are important because it allows the audience to think that you are relatable, that you understand, and that you are creating a connection, which from a presentation point of view is a wonderful position to be in. How do we conclude a presentation? In conclusion, I would like to state, so that's a beautiful way to start, to sum up, for a summary. In light of these facts, these three phrases are beautiful ways to present your conclusion. Number 3, we are going to look at strategies. What strategies could I use to create an impactful presentation? We talk about the power of 3. Never put more than 3 pieces of information in front of your audience at any one time. Hard to believe your heavily detailed work can be expressed so simply, yet breaking down your presentation into parts of 3 is a highly effective method of ensuring your audience understands and remembers your message. They often say the shorter, the more effective. So another useful tip would be to use simple language. Simple language is often more easily understood. This also applies to the presentation. Try to keep it in three clear sections. For example, the beginning. The beginning speaks of your introduction. So you set the stage. That means you are setting the scene. What is my presentation about? What are my objectives in this presentation? What do I want to say? The middle speaks about the body. We are now providing more in-depth details. We are providing evidence. We are providing a sound argument to why this presentation is as it is. And our third part speaks about our end, our conclusion. And remember, the most important part of the conclusion is summarizing core points and leaving an impact. We would like to end with an impactful statement. Knowing your audience. We need to understand who we are speaking to. So audience analysis involves identifying the audience and adapting a speech to their interests, level of understanding, attitudes, and beliefs. It's easier to speak to people when we understand who they are. Number 2, taking an audience-centered approach is important because a speaker's effectiveness will be improved if the presentation is created and delivered in an appropriate manner. Again, we are repeating how important it is to have a connection with those that you are speaking to. And by knowing your audience, you are able to create a good connection. So the first idea is understand who they are. Number 2, know their needs and concerns. Address these in your presentation. So the more you know your audience, the more you are able to create a presentation that is impactful and that speaks to their needs. Using visuals. Using visual aids in a presentation not only makes it look better, it's more effective. the more visual, the more impactful it could become. One study found that just 3 hours after a presentation, 85% of the audience can remember content presented visually versus 70% who can retain verbal content. So this is quite important because, as we know, we are mostly visual. But after 3 days, 60% can still remember the visual content, whereas only 10% can remember something from the oral presentation. Finally, tell a story. Studies show that when facts are presented in the form of a story, people are 22 times more likely to remember them. Talk about powerful. So this is quite impactful, especially if the story you are telling creates a deeper connection with your audience. Managing your question and answers. Give your full attention to the person asking the question and listen carefully to the question. Again, the most important part of creating impactful presentations is connection. How do we establish a connection, and how do we keep that connection throughout the presentation? How do we manage our Q&A? We establish and we keep eye contact with the questioner. We listen to the entire question before beginning your response. We make sure you're confident, understanding of the question, and if you need, you can ask for clarification. So this is the most important part. It's okay to ask, or it's okay to ask someone to repeat the question. The biggest idea here is that you maintain a good connection with your audience. Overcoming nervousness. This is a normal part of public speaking, and fear of public speaking is something that many people share. So if there is that fear, how can I overcome it? Number 1, know your topic. Number 2, get organized. Be prepared. Number 3, practice, and then practice some more. So it's very important to practice the parts that you could find are the most difficult. Challenge specific worries and concerns that you might have. Do some deep breathing. That could also help. Focus on your material, not your audience. And don't fear a moment of silence. Sometimes moments of silence are really useful, and it gives the audience a moment of reflection. So in conclusion, I would like us to highlight certain things. We have seen presentation expressions on how to. So number 1, introduce, provide evidence, address your counter arguments, and then you conclude. These expressions will take your presentation to the next level in English. Our key strategies that we like to remember is number 1, the power of 3. Number 2, knowing your audience and understanding who they are. And number 3, using visuals and imagination. This is the most important part, especially the power of 3. When we keep certain things simple, it allows us to connect with our audience on a deeper level. And if we use simple language, this could really help us to keep that connection. So we've got some e-learning modules that are prepared for you. We've got an A2 level. It's on pitching. We've got a B1 level on pitching an idea, B2 level, and C1. So for all intents and purposes, you could try A2. If it is too easy, you can then move on to B1, challenge yourself with B2, and then you could challenge yourself with C1 if it is too easy. Number 2, we then have an article from Le Cercle des Langues blog, Comment faire et réussir une présentation en anglais. And then number 3, we have a YouTube video, Comment faire des présentations convaincantes en anglais. So these are the resources that you can use to try to improve your presentation skills. So, thank you for watching. Please note that all of these presentations are available for you, and we will send them to you via email just after the presentation. So let's have a look. Can we have the slides? Absolutely. So Caroline, they will be sent to you directly after the presentation. You will have them. And I think now, if you would like to ask some questions, you are more than welcome to unmute your microphone. Let me see if I can do that for you. All the mics are on. So you are more than welcome to unmute and you could ask
Yes.
a question. Yes,
Hello,
Caroline.
Chanel. Can you
Hi,
hear
how are
me?
you?
Good, good. Sorry, it's my first conference, so
Yes.
I didn't know for all the sending slide and everything.
No, please do not. Don't worry at all. You are more than welcome.
Mm.
Um,
It's
so
very interesting for me because I'm a category manager. It's
yes,
in the commercial thing.
yes,
Field. So it's really important for me to be confident in the oral presentations.
yes.
And I have just one question.
Absolutely.
I was not here for the beginning. I don't know why my connection was really bad.
Yes.
Can you just explain, like quickly, in a simple way, the power of three?
Absolutely. I could actually go back to that for you. Because
Thank
there
you.
is time. So no, my absolute pleasure. So for the beginning, let me just let you know. So
Mhm.
there was obviously understanding common vocabulary and
Okay.
expressions, learning the strategies for structuring presentation, and I think you were here for most of the third part.
Mhm.
So when we are talking about the power of three, we're talking
Mm.
about the strategy.
Okay.
So it speaks about they advise to never put more than three pieces of information in front of your audience at any one time.
In
Um,
one slide.
I beg your pardon?
In For one slide.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
Okay.
absolutely. So even when you look at the way this presentation has
Mhm.
been formatted, there are three on the right, and yes, there are a few more examples, but it's two parts of information.
Okay.
So that is what they call the power of three. I think it means anything from one to two to three, but no more than that at any
Okay.
in a specific slide.
Okay.
Absolutely. So that is also because it also applies to presentation. For example, when you're talking about how you present your slides, but also in the way you present the presentation, because you have your beginning, which is mainly setting the stage for your presentation,
Mhm.
your middle, which is you providing more details and a counter argument, and then your end, which is your conclusion, which is wrapping it up.
Okay.
Okay? Do you have any more questions?
No, for it's okay for me. I will
Wonderful.
have a look again. So it will be sent in by email.
Absolutely. It will be sent by email.
By
So
email.
normally, everybody that registers for the course, they take those emails and they send out the presentation to you and
Okay.
you can have a look at it.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect.
Wonderful. Are there any more questions? Okay, so that's good. So a quick recap. I don't know how much you saw, Caroline, but we also spoke about visual aids, which is also
Mhm.
something that is quite useful. It's very clear and it talks about the statistics of how people retain information. So in
Mhm.
fact, 85% of the audience can remember content presented visually and
Okay.
70% who can retain verbal content. And actually, after 3 days, 60% can still remember visual content, whereas only 10% will remember something from the oral presentation.
Wow.
It's
Incredible.
incredible, the statistics. And I
Fantastic.
think that applies to even if you aren't a visual learner, because I'm a
Mhm.
visual learner, I love the visual.
Yes, me too.
You see, so sometimes that just sticks. So if it is a presentation, sometimes it helps to pull towards the visual content a little bit more.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Wonderful.
In fact, when I was at school, when I was young, I'm still young, but
Yes. No, I understand.
yes, when I was during an evaluation,
Mm-hmm.
I visualized in my mind, my piece of paper,
Yes.
with the color, with the if it was in bold or not,
Yes.
and it was really incredible because it works a lot for me,
Yes.
kind of thing. So
I think
yeah.
it helps to memorize information. You think about what did you see, what were in the groups.
Mm,
It really
yes.
helps memorize information. You are absolutely correct.
Mm.
So, we have a different topic that we will be discussing next week,
Mm.
and you are more than welcome to reserve. I hope you will. But other than that, you will be sent everything after, and you can revise and you can use it in your future presentations.
Okay, perfect. I think I subscribe for next week and again next week.
Wonderful. I look forward.